Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Doug Eglinton. I'm the chair of the Oakville Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Oakville, Burlington, Halton Hills, and Milton Chambers of Commerce, it is my pleasure to welcome you this morning. While I'm saying that, Premier Ford, we also welcome you. I believe you're not involved in some countries any longer. We have a number of elected officials joining us this morning. I ask the officials to stand so we may acknowledge your commitment to public service. Thank you. I also want to recognize our partners, whom without their strong support, we would not be able to host these important advocacy events. Now, when I mention the names, I just ask you to hold your applause. I'm just going to give a very, very brief description of what each company does. CN Rail. CN is a leading North American transportation and logistics company. Ford Motor Company of Canada. Ford makes great cars and trucks in Oakville. Brenthaven. Brenthaven is a family-owned home builder. Broccolini Construction. Broccolini is a construction company with offices in Ontario. FCT. FCT stands for First Canadian Title and deals in real estate technology. Burlington Hydro. Burlington Hydro has been supplying hydro services since 1945. Kojiko. Kojiko supplies residential and small businesses with internet, video, and telephony. Enbridge Inc. Enbridge has been supplying gas service to Ontario for over 150 years. And finally, LJM Developments. LJM is a real estate developer. Thank you, partners. To begin what is sure to be an engaging and informative morning, I would like to invite Dan Breslin, Vice President, Intermodal CN, to the podium. Now, some of you don't know what intermodal means. Intermodal means versatility. Containers, ships, trains, and trucks. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Doug, for that kind introduction. Good morning. My name is Dan Breslin. I'm Vice President of Intermodal at CN. I bring you greetings on behalf of the 25,000 men and women who run the railroad in North America for CN, proud railroaders in the United States and Canada. I've always known that we have superb people, but COVID has demonstrated just how tough, smart, and resilient these people are. Supply chains have been severely tested through these times, and they've come through every time. They brought us food, essential goods, medicine, medical supplies, and clothing. It's really a privilege to work with them. CN is a North American railway with a local focus. Take Halton region, for example. We've been here more than 100 years, and like Halton, we share a strong commitment to the environment. Rail is the most efficient, environmentally responsible way to move goods. For example, one intermodal train can take 300 long-haul trucks off the highways. And speaking of trucks, CN is about to acquire 50 zero-emission trucks for use at our intermodal terminals in our urban areas. We'll take delivery of these trucks in 2023. I'm the boss, so I get to drive the first one. And Premier Ford, I'd love to take you for a ride on that first truck. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. Mr. Ford served as a Toronto City Councillor from 2010 to 2014 and was subsequently elected as MPP for Etobicoke North in 2018. That same year, he was elected to the Progressive Conservative Party and led the party to a majority win. A dedicated community leader, successful business person, and a passionate advocate for people, Doug's commitment to public service runs in the family. 3 generations of Fords have served the people of Ontario in elected office. Please join me in welcoming Premier Doug Ford.
Boy, you really sink into these, don't you?
They should have put a board or something underneath it, I think. Good morning, Premier, and welcome. Welcome to Halton.
Well, thanks for having me by, and I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. It looks like we have a packed house.
Well,
but before I forget, Tim, and I got to give a shout out to someone that never has an opportunity to get out and travel with me, and that's my lovely and beautiful wife, Carla. I'm not too sure where she is, but
over here.
This is a rarity. Yeah. And she brought her sister, Kristen, and Dave, and Melody, and Carla, and Aaron. I'm not too sure who else is there, but there they are. It's hard to see with the lights, but it's a real pleasure to be here.
And I understand you have a few opening words you wanted to provide.
Sure, yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let me stand up first of all. Well, folks, first of all, thank you so much for having us by. You know, our province, our country, the whole world went through a real challenging time over the last 2 years. And I just want to thank everyone that contributed to getting us through this. And I'm not saying we're 100% through it, but we've sure come a long way. And I always say the champions of the frontline healthcare workers and right across the board, no matter if it was the first responders or manufacturers. And we'll get into how everyone helped in a little bit. But I'm so grateful. Now we're all together. We're going to blaze a new trail moving forward. We're going to continue to lead North American job creation, economic development. And you know, Tim, I'm so grateful to be the premier of the greatest jurisdiction in the world, but also to have the greatest team ever. And I think a couple of my team members are here, some MPPs, if you just want to stand up for a minute. I think Jane McKenna's here, Effie Trinopoulos, Stephen Crawford, and Parm Gill. It's a team that really brought us this far, and you have great representation here in Halton, and just look forward to continuing on for the next 4 years, God willing.
Perfect.
So thank you.
It's 3 years ago this month that you and I sat here and did a fireside chat. So I don't know why, but I have gray hair and you'd have none, and yet you're the premier. Let's jump right in. I wanted to start off by talking, you talked about the pandemic. Obviously, that's on everyone's mind. And the pandemic created a number of problems besides the health issue. Obviously, supply chain, labor shortages, you name it, businesses have been hit pretty hard. If we want our economy and our people to emerge stronger amid so much uncertainty, sure, Ontario must focus on creating the right environment for business competitiveness, predictability, and growth. This also means having a clear and comprehensive plan to manage the ongoing threats the pandemic poses to Ontario's reopening and recovery. Premier, what measures is your government taking to ensure business predictability?
Well, thanks for that, Tim. First of all, we have to make sure we take care of our healthcare sector. I always say without a healthy population, you don't have a healthy economy. And we've learned a lot, all of us, right across Ontario, and making sure that we have the capacity. And I'll just give you some figures. We're investing over $30 billion. That's $30 billion in building new hospitals right across Ontario. And it's not just one sector, it's right across Ontario. I was up in Huntsville yesterday, and Bracebridge announcing $1 billion investment to build hospitals there as well. So we're focusing on the rural areas and the northern areas. And another area is HHR, Health Human Resources. You can build the infrastructure, and that's probably one of the easiest things, to build the buildings. It's getting people here, getting people trained. We've hired so far 8,600 healthcare workers, and it's a combination right across the board, no matter if it's the docs or the nurses or PSWs. We're on a roll to hire 27,000 new PSWs, an additional 5,000 nurses. But again, we have to expedite this through the colleges and universities. A great thing, we just opened up we're opening up a new medical school out in Brampton. And I told the people in Brampton, wouldn't that be great if their kids went to school in Brampton, practiced at the medical school, and then the new hospital we're building there, they were able to go there, and I should say learn at the medical school and practice at the hospital. And that's what we're going to continue doing, building HHR, building the hospital capacity to make sure that we can move forward. We've created over 3,100 acute care beds. which is really, really staggering number. We've increased ICU capacity if we peak out up to 3,000 beds. And we're going to continue pouring money into the healthcare system, driving lean methodologies throughout the system, working with our CEOs and frontline folks to deliver healthcare in a more rapid fashion.
You know, we've had a long go at this. You know that more than anyone. What's the government doing to remain agile so that we can, you know, as the next wave or whatever COVID throws at us, that we can remain open and provide that confidence for business?
Well, just making sure we have a stable healthcare sector. I'll give you one example about long-term care, and we all saw what happened in long-term care. You know, we inherited a system, and I'm not pointing fingers at one government because it went on for decades. As someone said, that was the chief of staff to Bill Davis. Doug, this has been going on since Bill Davis. We need to correct it, and that's exactly what we're doing. Previous government in 10 years created 600 long-term care beds. We're creating 30,000 long-term care beds. We're doing rapid builds, and it was really, I was really impressed with out in Ajax. We did a rapid build, and from the shovel in the ground to putting people in there was 11 months. That's really incredible. And I always say, if we can do it for long-term care, why can't we do it for housing? Why can't we do it for commercial buildings? We need to work all collaboratively together, because that's the only way things happen. If we work with the municipal government, provincial and federal government, and the private sector, we're unstoppable.
You know, it's interesting. You started hearing rumors about labor shortages, but then you start hearing the examples. I walked into a place to get my hair cut, and the person that owned it said she couldn't find staff. So she's working by herself. So labor shortages are a real issue. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce's Ontario Economic Report found that 60% of businesses are currently experiencing a labor shortage and expect to continue to face one over the next year. How does the government plan to address that long-standing shortages and the fact that they've been worsened by the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a good and bad thing, Tim. I always say everywhere I go in the province, there was a help wanted sign. And when I was first elected 4 years ago, that wasn't the case. We had lost 300,000 jobs. And I'll never forget, you know, a conversation with one of the CEOs of the auto manufacturers when we first took office a couple of weeks. And no, it's not anyone from Ford. Ford, I love. It was another group that we met and said, you know, this is the most uncompetitive jurisdiction in the world. You have the highest taxes, highest hydroelectricity rates. You have red tape and regulations coming out of your ears. And by the way, sayonara, we're out of here. Well, let's move forward 4 years, because we rely on our auto sector. You know, we signed a great deal with our friends at Ford sitting at the table, and I'm so grateful for that relationship. Ourselves, the federal government and their company, putting billions of dollars into the Ford Motor Company Oakville facility to create electric vehicles, along with General Motors. We were out there, out in Oshawa, and everyone remembers when they left. Again, altogether, rather than throw out the figures, $12 billion of investment went into the auto sector, and now they're rolling off pickup trucks in Oshawa and the Ingersoll plant. Honda, the same scenario, investing into electric vehicles, and Toyota, and then the big announcement with Stellantis and LG. Creating a battery plant down there, and everything is connected. And I'm just going to use the announcement with LG, the $5 billion investment, the largest investment in Canadian history, but it's all tied together. And I always say, when companies thrive and prosper and grow, the people that work there thrive, prosper, and grow. The communities prosper and grow. And I'm going to use Windsor as an example. We're building a new hospital in Windsor that they've been waiting for decades. We're building a new bridge, widening Highway 3, building roads and schools, an investment in $90 million of schools there as well, long-term care. So it's amazing, and especially in the auto sector, you multiply it 7 to 1. So if there's, you know, whatever, 2,800, 3,000 jobs, multiply that by 7 everywhere from retail stores to the welding shops, you name it. So what I love, how the supply chain is tied to our critical mineral strategy. We have 33 of the most critical minerals anywhere in the world right here in Ontario. And we've finally unleashed companies to be able to go up there. But the number one priority, and we're working so well with our Indigenous communities, they see the opportunity for their communities and for employment for the people that live within their communities. So we have the lithium, the graphite, the cobalt, the nickel to create these batteries. And that's going to come down to the auto plants, whoever wants to manufacture batteries, and hopefully more are coming. Then we have the green steel. We invested hundreds of millions of dollars into Fasco in Hamilton. And it's not literally green steel, but we're getting rid of all the coal and putting an electric arc furnace in there, because you can't have an electric vehicle without, green steel. And then we did the same up in Algoma and Sault Ste. Marie, switching over from coal. And again, that's like taking 1 million vehicles off the road. And they're all interconnected. And it's really amazing how it works.
You've introduced a couple of topics I want to ask you about now. Yeah. But I do want to just circle back a bit on supply chain issues. Yeah. What's the government doing to try to ensure that the supply chain issues that we have been experiencing, that we are experiencing, that we can somehow get out of that situation?
Well, Tim, thanks for that. Because when I've had an opportunity to travel around the province, and I spent 20 years down in the U.S. and looking at our competition, because I always say we're competing against everywhere from South America to Asia over to Europe. Well, our biggest trading partner is the United States. We do about approximately $400 billion of two-way trade every single year with the U.S. We're the number one trading partner to 19 states and number 2 to 9 other ones. So we're an economic powerhouse in North America. And when I had an opportunity to travel around the province, I thought there's nothing we can't manufacture here. And it doesn't matter if it's a widget or the tech sector that is absolutely just booming right now, and we're overtaking Silicon Valley. If you add up all the tech sectors in Ontario, and as I mentioned, the mining sector, agriculture, automotive. So we need to have domestic supply here. And I've had an opportunity to reach out and speak to the big retailers, the Walmarts, Canadian Tires, Home Depot, and they're looking at domestic supply as well. And it goes back to the beginning of this pandemic. And you really see in the public and private sector the cracks in the ship. And I always say I'm just a business guy, a numbers guy, and when I looked at the whole supply system that we had, it was a mess. Like, we were not prepared with the PPE right at the get-go. And to be fair, neither was the rest of the country, neither was the U.S. Everyone started to scramble. And I remember when we called down to the U.S. to get the N95 masks, and they cut us off. President Trump said, that's it. We're going to take care of our own. Boy, you wake up real quick when a real pandemic hits. It's every country for itself, and we stuck together as a country. Yes, we're supporting each other. But I went out, and I remember my press conference, and I literally called out for help. I knew we had the ingenuity and the smarts to manufacture anything, and called out for help to make PPE. And what was staggering, talk about the Ontario spirit coming together. 26,000 companies went online and went on our portal. And within 2 months, we were manufacturing surgical masks, face masks. I remember Roots went over to gowns, medical gowns. The distillers went over to hand sanitizer. It was really incredible. The auto sector was doing, Ford was doing the face shields, I remember going by, and ventilators as well. So within 2 months, we had a whole industry. Then we convinced 3M to open a plant in Brockville. So they're producing millions and millions of masks, N95 masks, every single month there. So now we're self-sufficient, and I remember saying we will never, ever rely on anyone else ever again.
That's good to hear.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about electric vehicles. I think it was Minister Fedeli last week that said the government was all in on electric, and you've touched on it again this morning. One of the things that I think some businesses would be interested in hearing about is what support the government might do to help convert organizations that run fleets. The cost to get to electric is very steep. Is there a way to help expedite that process for companies that run fleets?
I think we can always keep an open mind in doing that, be it the big courier companies or anyone that has a big fleet. We took a little different approach. We invested into the Ford Motor Companies of the world, the auto sectors, the part manufacturers, critical minerals and battery companies, and until we can invest in jobs, and they'll create the opportunities for companies like the big fleets to sit down and transform their fleet. I know GM's doing it with the Ingersoll plant as well. So we're going to continue working with the auto sector to see how we can support them. I've never, I never believed in giving millionaires that buy Teslas a rebate in a foreign country. I believe in supporting our workers here in Ontario, our manufacturers here in Ontario, and we sunk billions of dollars into the auto sector and critical mineral sector and the battery sector as well.
Would your government consider taking action to remove barriers to interprovincial trade, using either mutual recognition agreements or unilateral recognition of the adequacy of standards where appropriate?
Yeah, so when we first, thanks Tim, so when we first came into office, the first thing we did is get together with all the premiers, and by the way, there's so many different political stripes federally, but we stick together like glue. We have personal relationships. We talk almost every single week, making the calls. And the first thing I wanted to drive is interprovincial trade barriers that were up. We've heard numbers anywhere from $50 to $100 billion. And isn't it amazing how we can trade with our United States, our greatest partners and friends, easier than I can trade with BC, or I can trade with Alberta. And I know there was a little hiccup with the pandemic, but we're all moving forward. We have committees put together to knock down the barriers, because every jurisdiction, has a little protectionism policy. Don't touch my wine over in BC, or don't touch this, and we want to ship it into Ontario. But I'd rather just lift all the barriers, and again, it would drive economic prosperity, right to a tune of anywhere from 50 to $100 billion. So we're going to work on that. The most important thing is relationships. And, there's one thing in the middle of the election. People understand that political parties, they're going to go out there and, duke it out a little bit politically. But what people expect is once the election's over, you work collaboratively with the municipal, provincial, and federal governments. And I think all three levels will work so well together. I know we have some mayors in here, Mayor Burton and Mayor Krantz and Mayor Ward from Halton Region. They're phenomenal mayors, and we just we enjoy working with them, and the federal government as well. We couldn't have been able to put these packages together for Dofasco, Algoma, Ford, and General Motors, all the rest of them, without cooperation with the federal government. And I've mentioned to the PM, there's certain things that we may never agree on, but there's so many more things that we can agree on to drive economic prosperity in this country, and we work very, very well with them.
You mentioned Mayor Burton. I had a chat with him this morning when I came in, and he was talking about some of the efficiencies that the government has brought about at the municipal level. And his question was, are there other plans for efficiencies at the municipal government level?
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to thank Mayor Burton. It's the first key of the city I've ever received was a couple of weeks ago, so I'm very grateful to have the key of the city there. I'm big into Lean Six Sigma, Lean methodologies, driving Lean systems within the government. And when I took office, because we have Lean methodologies in our Chicago, Toronto facilities, and it's a proven system. So I went into government and I asked the Secretary of Cabinet, which is the head bureaucrat. I don't even like the word bureaucrat, but the head public servant. You know, do we have anyone with black belts? And they said, oh, we'll look into it. So they looked into it. 1,800 people have black belts within the province that weren't being utilized to really use their skill set that they've learned. And I'm just sold on lean. So we put one person in charge, and we really filled that team up. And we went from ministry to drive process, to standardize. And we did the same work with the municipalities. We need housing. And I've walked a mile in their shoes. I remember, you know, all the hurdles within the system at Toronto, trying to get a permit that might take 2 to 3 years. Again, I use the word collaborative. You can't do it alone. So we're working collaboratively with the municipalities to support them, give them the tools. If there's any tools from the province that they need, we're more than happy to help them to get those permits out the door as quickly as possible and create more housing. We have a housing crisis right now. You know, as we stand right here today, I mentioned about 300,000 jobs lost. We've created the environment. I always say we create the environment. We don't, as soon as government starts creating jobs, we're all in deep trouble. But we create the environment and the climate for companies to create jobs. And as we stand right here today, there's 500,000 more people working today than when we took office 4 years ago. And it's really amazing, even throughout the pandemic. But where I'm going with the housing is we're short 338,000 people right now to fill the jobs that we have in every single sector. And I'm pro-immigration. We need as many people as possible to come over here. You know, I told the Prime Minister, and with our great friends in the Ukraine, my heart breaks for them. We need to do everything we can to help them. I said, you know, Justin, get the people on the planes, do the security check, because there's huge opportunities here in Ontario, and we have such an amazing Ukrainian population here, and they've done an incredible job. But where I'm going with the housing is we don't have enough housing when they come here. We're short 338,000. Even though we had the most housing starts in 30 years, that was 100,000 in the province, that's not acceptable. We need to get the numbers up to 200,000. There's going to be 1 million people, I believe it's going to be more than 1 million, but 1 million people coming here in the next 5 years. Where are they going to live? So we need to cut the red tape, the regulations, give the tools to the municipalities, work with them, and create more housing for people. And we're also investing $4.2 billion in broadband. And where this connects to housing is before, you know, you couldn't live up north and work up there through broadband. I'll go to parts of Halton, you can't even get reception up there. So now we're investing the $4.2 billion. So anywhere in Ontario, and it's massive, Ontario. I always say it's the size of Texas and California combined, but even the furthest northern areas are going to have high-speed internet. I always talk about the $148 billion of infrastructure that our government's putting in. Nothing is more important than connectivity. And now you could, well, I was up in Huntsville, you could live up in Huntsville, and you can be connected. You can work from home, and you can get lower cost housing. Actually, it's pretty expensive up in Huntsville. Those lakefront properties are, I couldn't believe some of the prices that I saw the other, you know, you get little shacks on the lake that are worth $1.5 million, but there is opportunities at lower cost housing up there and be able to work from home.
Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a cue here, so I have 2 very quick questions for you. You talked about immigration, and I think everybody recognizes that's probably the only way we can fill the labor shortage gap. Are there plans, or is there any way the government can assist with credential recognition, so that when a doctor comes here, that they aren't forced to work, you know, in another discipline because we don't recognize the credentials that come in?
Yeah, we're doing that within the trades as well. The medical field's a little different. We're recognizing nurses with foreign credentials. With the doctors, I truly believe they should take an exam at minimum, just to make sure that they're up to North American standards. But yes, we have to do it. We have to recognize credentials from all over the world, be it electricians, engineers, carpenters, and get them into the field. We've spent hundreds of millions. We're going to continue to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in training trades. And a lot of people without outside the trades, I'll go into a company and I said, we have programs to help you. And a lot of them just say, bring them in here, we'll train them. We can't afford to wait a year to get these people. We'll start training them right now. So we're going to continue pouring money into training people.
Good. You have some family here. As I said, you and I had a chance to do this 3 years ago. You probably don't get this question very often. I don't think it matters the political stripe, but for anybody that's in your role, there's a lot of people that think they know your job, but that don't. You've gone through this pandemic. You took on something that I don't think anybody saw coming at the last election. How are you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. I love getting out and meeting the people. You ask any elected officials. I call Queen's Park the bubble. You sit in the bubble and you listen to a bunch of politicians and bureaucrats. That's not me. I like going out, visiting manufacturing facilities and talking to the people. And people say, why do you give your cell phone number out to everyone? You have two options. You can either just listen to people at Queen's Park, or you can have thousands of ears and eyes in every single sector and areas of the province that call you up and tell you, hey, we got an issue here, we got an issue there, and the stuff you deal with, you can't even imagine some of the help that people need. But if you can help them along or help their business or help their family, it makes a world of difference. It might be small in the grand scheme of things, but it really, really changes their lives on a lot of times. But we're going to continue moving forward. We're going to continue investing in Ontario, putting money back into people's pockets. The worst thing you could ever do is raise taxes on people and tax businesses. As soon as you start doing that, they hold on to their money. They don't invest it. But we're seeing a tremendous investment right now in Ontario from all over the world. And every night I get a call and a message from Vic Fideli, my Minister of Economic Development and Trade and Commerce. There's one night he's ever missed, and companies are coming in by the droves. And these are the ones we know about that are expanding, existing ones, and new companies are coming in. And I always call them probably about 11 o'clock at night. We have a chat. And I said, we need more people. That's my standard thing. We need more people. We're working with the federal government. Immigration, and it's not their fault, it's been going on for years, has been backlogged. Let's just cut the red tape, regulations. Like I say, there should be one check, a security check, move on, and come to Ontario. And we welcome them with open arms. And again, I just want to thank everyone for coming today. I know you have a very busy schedule. If there's anything I could ever help you with, please feel free to reach out to me. The best way is text me on my phone. I get a few hundred a day, so it might take me a day to get back to you, but I'll do my very best to get back to you, or one of our ministers will be able to get back to you. And I'm just very grateful. We live in the greatest jurisdiction in the entire world to start a family, raise a family, start a business, to live, bar none over anyone. So I just want to thank you. God bless each and every one of you. And again, just reach out if I could support you in any way. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So, Premier, thanks again for doing this, and thanks for coming to Halton. We really appreciate your time. Before we leave today, Jennifer Smith, the chair of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce, has a brief presentation.
Good morning, everyone. As Tim mentioned, I'm Jennifer Smith, and I'm the current chair of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce. I'm also executive vice president of Burlington Hydro. I'm so glad to see everybody out today, and especially in person. And I just want to say to the 4 teams at the various chambers for all your hard work in putting this event together. It's greatly appreciated. And special thank you to Premier Ford for coming today. I know how busy your schedule is, so we appreciate you coming out and hearing your position on the various issues that affect all businesses in our territory. And for that, on behalf of Milton, Oakville, Burlington, and Halton Hills Chamber of Commerce, we want to present you with a token of our appreciation.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's good. You know, I collect these books. We got a whole bunch of them. That's great. So you got the baseball cap. We have a little bit of everything in here. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated.
Head right back in.
Thanks, everyone.